video, I have already answered the first question, that is what kind of problems that we can solve with CNN. If you haven't seen it, please go through that particular video. Now let's see what are the parameters and hyperparameters in case of CNN. Basically, parameters are the variables which are adjusted by whom? I think by now you might have already known this. I have discussed this multiple number of times. Parameters are the variables which are adjusted by the model. So here the model that we are using is CNN. Okay. And similarly, the variables which are adjusted by us or the programmer. So variables which are adjusted by us or the programmer is the hyperparameters. Please think of it for some time in this whole CNN. Where are the parameters and where are the hyperparameters? What are those? Please think of it for some time and comment down your answer in the comment section before checking out this particular video. Now let's jump into this particular video. Basically, parameters, if you think carefully, this is the same ANN structure, right? So whatever parameters that we have in ANN, those parameters will be having in CNN as well. Here we are having connections, right? On all of these connections, we'll be having some specific weights. All these weights will be our parameters. Let's say there are 5 number of inputs and there are 10 number of neurons in this particular layer. Then the total number of parameters in these two will be 5 into 10 plus 10. So this extra 10 are the bias terms, and this we have already discussed, right? And similarly, like that, we can calculate the number of parameters in this ANN part. So this is very clear for us. This is our ANN part. If we go backward, then we'll be having the pooling layers and the convolution layers, right? So in these pooling, ReLU and convolutional layers, are there any parameters? If you carefully observe, there is one specific layer where we are using something to extract out something. Those are kernels, right? So in convolutional layer, here we are using kernels, right? So these kernels will be our weight matrices. For your understanding, I explained it like this is a given image, and from this given image, it will be extracting out some specific feature. Like let's say if you are taking some human face, in this human face, there are multiple features like eyes, nose, mouth, everything. I said these are all features, and these kernels will have information about these features, and it will extract out each of the information in the feature map. But actually, these will be initially some random values. Okay, so these kernel which will be some random values, and on doing forward propagation through this whole CNN, we'll be getting initially very bad output. Okay, once we got some really bad output, then the model will get to know that it is doing bad with the help of loss function. And once it gets to know that it is doing very bad, then what will it do? It will try to adjust the weights, right? Or it will try to adjust the parameters. That it will be doing with the help of optimizer. And the optimizers that we'll be using over here are ADAM, ADAGRAD, RMS prop, ADA delta. So any of these we can use. These are some advanced optimizers. Among this, we can use one of the optimizers, which will help us in adjusting all of this. So if you remember, in case of ANN, how we are adjusting the weights, the way of adjusting of parameters, that we call it as backpropagation. The same backpropagation applies over here as well. According to backpropagation, first the last layered weights will get updated. That means, let's say each of these I am representing with weight matrices W0, W1, so on. Let's say this is WL. According to backpropagation, first we'll be updating the last layered weights, that is this particular WL. And after updating all the weights in WL, then we'll be updating all the weights of WL minus 1, that is the previous layer weights. Like that, so on, we'll go back, and then we'll update this W1 weights that are weights in this particular layer. And then we'll be updating all the weights in W0. And then we'll go to the previous layered convolutional layer. Okay. So before this, whatever the previous convolutional layer, that is over here. So here we are having convolutional layer, and in this convolution layer only we are having the kernels, right? Basically, these kernels are the weights, right? So these weights will get updated, and after updating all these weights, then it will move to the its previous convolutional layer, and it will update all the weights over here. All these weights will get updated. So in this way, the backpropagation will happen in case of CNN. You might have some doubt, like in case of pooling, will be having window size, and right. So will that be a parameter or not? Basically, it is not a parameter. If you remember, in pooling, we are just extracting out maximum. We are not applying any operations with this value, that is window size, right? We are just uh, fixing the window size, and within that window we are trying to extract out whichever the maximum value, and we are putting it in the output. That is the reason window size will not be considered as parameter. Like apart from these kernels and these weights, all these weights remaining, all will be our hyperparameters only. Okay, basically what are our parameters in case of CNN? Parameters are simply all ANN weights, because at the last we are having the same ANN structure, and kernels in convolutional layer. So these will be my parameters. And what are hyperparameters? Now you have so many hyperparameters. In case of ANN, whatever hyperparameters that we thought of, all will be over here also. So in case of ANN, which all hyperparameters we have? The number of fully connected layers, that will be one hyperparameter, and what is the activation function that we are using in case of these fully connected layers, or the hidden layers in case of ANN, that also will be one hyperparameter. And what is the number of neurons in each of these fully connected layers. And similarly, if we go on to this CNN part, in case of pooling, window size will be one hyperparameter. And similarly, we have discussed about stride, and also we have discussed about padding, right? Those will be also our hyperparameters, because all these will be adjusted by us only. And also we'll be adjusting the kernel size as well. What is the kernel size, and what is the number of kernels? All these things we will only decide. These all comes under our hyperparameters, and there can be many more. Maybe one or two I might have missed. All these will be my hyperparameters. Okay. I hope what are parameters and hyperparameters in case of CNN is very clear. And calculation of number of parameters I'll be discussing in the code videos. There you'll get better understanding of calculation of number of parameters. Basically, in code videos, I'll take out the architecture, and I'll draw a diagram like this, and I'll clearly explain to you, so that you'll get some clarity. Okay, so don't miss out the code videos that I'll be uploading maybe in few more days. Okay. So that's it for this video. If you have any talks, please comment down in the comment section. I'll try to help you out. Thank you everyone. Bye bye.